All right. So, good afternoon, everyone. We have hopefully around 50 people registered for today's session. And today we are going to be jumping into the topic of meta advertising, which is a hot topic, and it's been a hot topic for years and years now. And I'm happy to be spending the next hour or so with you regarding that. So after today's session, you will be receiving a copy of the recording. So you're welcome to view it afterwards. So a little bit about me, a little bit about the team. My name is Jennifer Baker. I'm the facilitator today. I'm also the owner of JBC, a digital marketing agency in Kingston, Ontario. I have a team of 3. We've got one who's got her camera on, Vish. She can and will be looking at questions and just managing new people to the meeting. So we are a digital marketing agency that provides done-for-you social media. We also do meta ads, shocking, but also Google ads as well. So if you've ever been to one of my sessions, you know that I like interaction, you know that I like questions, and I know with meta advertising, there is a lot of questions. And to be very honest with you, I still have questions about meta ads. So today we're going to be talking about what are they? How are they unique? How are they different than the other paid advertising options out there? We're going to be talking about audience development. So things like discussing the difference between saved and custom and lookalike audiences, and then actually into the campaign creation. So a lot of people like to do this in reverse. They want to like make the creative and do the caption before all the other work. So we're going to do it kind of in the way in which you would have to do it when creating a meta ad. So before we go any further, I just want to thank everyone for attending today. There's many of you, actually, there's one name who shall not be named, but in a good way. This person has been coming to my webinars, I think, since 2020, and they are based out of Texas. So you know who you are. So thanks for coming back. I was super excited to see your name pop up on the registration form. So welcome back for another session. All right. And for those of you who have been with me for many years, thanks as always for coming along for the ride. There's always something to learn. So feel free to use the chat as we go through. I will be looking at it and answering your questions as we go. If you do have any questions that are a little bit off topic than what we're talking about, just save them to the end. We've got a little bit of time there. All right, ready to rock and roll. Who has done meta ads before? Who has created a Facebook ad or tapped the Instagram promote? And okay, so yes, we have tried and we're doing it and we're learning. Okay, so we're all kind of familiar somewhat with the process. So meta ads are ads that run on Facebook and Instagram. There's another little piece to that, but primarily Facebook and Instagram. So they're the ads that run in those 2 places and spaces. And what people really love about meta ads is the targeting options. So we can look and target at things like age, gender, specific interests. It can be jobs, employers. I will say that landscape has drastically changed in the last, I'd say like 5 years, 5 to 7 years, to be honest. I remember doing a workshop for our local municipality here, and this is probably a decade ago, to be honest. And there was a lovely woman in the session, and she's like, "Oh, this is so cool how you can target." She's like, "How specific can we get?" And I'm like, "I don't know, try me. Like, let's go through an example together." And she's like, "Okay, let's do Kingston. That's where I'm located. So Kingston." I'm like, "Okay." And she said, "Male." I'm like, "Okay." Between 40 and 50. I'm like, "Okay, great." Who like the author, and I can't remember the author anymore. And I'm like, "Oh, there's like 30 people in the area." And she's like, "This is better than online dating." And because she's like, "Can I run targeted ads just to these people?" But now it's a little bit different. So we can't get that niche anymore. So the idea of reaching like a group of 30 people, no, the minimums are 1,000 or above, but we still can get fairly specific. So these are typically the ads that you're seeing. So my team my team and I were looking at the different ads that were popping up across our Facebook and Instagram the other day, and these are some of the ones that we saw. So we can see Ruggable, and you're all going to get these ads now on your phone. So just FYI, because I'm saying the words. Well, so we've got Ruggable, we've got ZipRecruiter, we've got Dr. Urkel. We kind of got a real kind of mix of the different ads. So we've got stories, and we've got in feed, and we've got right-hand columns. So they're all over the place on Meta. But how are they different? And this is a huge question that I have and often get from people. How are Meta ads different than Google? Is one better than the other? Those are the two questions that I get kind of in conjunction. So Meta ads are focused on a personal interest. So Facebook has made a profile for each of us. So Facebook knows I like hiking. I'm in Kingston, Ontario, Canada. I'm a parent. So it's made this profile of me. And in previous webinars, I could show people like what their profiles were, but we're not doing that today. So it's kind of made assumptions about who I am based on my website searches, things I've included in my profile, text message or messenger conversations I have with old friends. So it's made this assumed profile. And then from that assumed profile, it sends me targeted ads to what they think I'm interested in. And that's fine. And that can work. Where Google Ads is very different. They're primarily search-based. So we've all done it. You don't know how to do an action. You want to learn more about a subject matter. You want to learn personal experience, how to fix your toilet. So you go to Google and you say, what is wrong with, how do I fix how do I get my kid to stop crying? We've all asked Google a question like this. So they're primarily search based. So it's going to serve us the results based on the inquiry that we put into the engine. And then it's going to spit out the results, which is very different from Meta because it's presenting us ads based on our assumed profile. So what I like to do and how I like to present these two is using both in a concurrent manner. So Google to bring them in and Meta to retarget them. That's how I like to do a lot of my campaigns. Not required for everybody, but that's how they seem to work very well together. Now, LinkedIn and Meta is, I'll say similar, very similar profiles and how they function based on our assumed profile. But many of you I know do have LinkedIn profiles because we are connected. But where LinkedIn differs is the information we put in about employment status, our skills and expertise, the different job positions that we have, our seniority. So that's how advertisers can target. So rather than it being on Facebook about parenting and hiking for me, on LinkedIn, it's now about CEO, I've been in the job 10 plus years, seniority, blah, blah, blah. So it's very different targeting. So where people find LinkedIn very useful is if they're looking for people of a specific career level or within a specific industry. So it depends. So going back to our Google, so Google is great if you're casting your wide net looking for people interested in coffee. Meta ads can help to retarget based on that interest in coffee. If you're an individual that works primarily with B2B, LinkedIn might be the place to be. I'm not going to get into cost with this webinar because I can spend all day just on costs, but they do vary in terms of cost. But what I do like to say about cost is, number one, it depends on your business structure. So I'm just looking here. Okay, so we do literally have someone who sells coffee. So the coffee, I'll use the coffee example and the house example. So we've got one individual in this session today who sells coffee, and the coffee is $20 for a 1 pound bag. Okay. Then we also have somebody on this webinar today that builds houses. So that is $600,000. So the budgets are going to be different. And the expectation of those ads are going to be different. It's a lot easier for someone to say, hey, yeah, we need some coffee. It's only $20. I'll give it a, give it a purchase, versus somebody who says, oh, buy a house. You don't, many of us, I know I didn't, you don't just buy a, you don't go, just go out this afternoon and buy a house. It takes a long time. So based on your industry, it's going to be very different. All right. So your business manager, who knows what your business manager is? Who has ever heard this term before? Me, Melinda has heard. I've probably told you, Melinda, about your business manager, Hilda. Yep. It's a scary place, your business manager. It's a scary place. Some people don't know that they even have a business manager, but I call it sometimes the gray space on Facebook. And the screen cap that I give here, David, find it hard to work with. I agree. So the screen cap here is generally, I've seen different iterations of it across different accounts, but this is the current one. It's a place and space that allows you to manage ad accounts, pages, any data sets, and other assets. And you think, Jennifer, I have no idea what any of those words mean. That's okay. We'll go through that. But the business manager allows you to give control to the people who need control over certain pieces. And you might be thinking, well, it's just me in my business. There's only one of me and I only have one page. Do I need this? I'd probably say yes. Versus if you're with a municipality, I highly recommend having your business manager set up, because now you can have separate ad accounts for departments and assign certain budgets to each department. If you manage multiple pages, and you can give those different levels of access. This is not the easiest platform to work with. Even personally, if I don't say a curse word at it in a day, I probably haven't been in there long enough, because it can be frustrating to work with this. And they are rolling out a new one. So before I can even learn the old one inside and out, they're rolling out a new iteration that I have seen. The next one is your ads manager, which often gets confused with your business manager. So think of your business manager right at the top. That's going to control everything. And then one step down from that is your ads manager. So this is the place and space that allows you to manage your ads. Oops, sorry. I'm going to bring over a screen. So again, I bring over screens so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is generally what your ads manager looks like. It's a little bit terrifying in here, but this is generally what it's going to look like. So you can see your different campaigns that are being set up, and you've got some options over on the left-hand side. So this is your ads manager. And that's really what we're going to focus on today. Okay. And the last, I'll say manager for today is your commerce manager. And I'm looking at who we have today. 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe of you, 4 or 5 of you might utilize the commerce manager. If you do have a Shopify store or an e-commerce or a similar e-commerce store, it allows you to put all of your products, connect your e-commerce to Facebook, so you can have the storefront on Facebook and Instagram. But then it also allows you to create ads using your most up-to-date inventory. So some of you will utilize this, but more than half won't, based on who I can see in the room today. Okay, so those are the 3 quote unquote managers: business manager, ads manager, and commerce manager. Okay, any questions before I move on? I see Nancy has a question. I don't know if we're going to get into restricted ad accounts today, but we will go through a few little bits. But any other questions before I move on? Seeing none? All right, we're moving on. Audience development. One of my favorite topics, one of my favorite things to jump into is your audience and understanding who your audience is. So if a couple of you maybe want to tell me in the chat who your audience is, and then I can use that as an example as we build an audience together in a live example. So I guess whoever can type the quickest and put that into chat is the winner and will be used as an example today. But this sometimes can be hard. You know, maybe you have multiple audiences and that's okay. You can have multiple separate audiences rather than putting them all together. All right, so David had a question, e-commerce, does that include being paid for content? So that's separate. So David, I know you do have a Shopify store, so that would be the commerce manager, but being paid for content would be more of the creator aspect. So two separate pieces in there. All right, so we've got Hilda with anyone wanting to get into shape and to start training. All right, Hilda, where are they located? Tammy, one is widowed women homeowners. Wow, you have put in most of the restricted ad categories in one target audience. Okay, we can try to work through that one. Okay, Hilda is Merrickville and area. Okay, so then I'm going to keep asking these questions. So Hilda, do you do virtual training or is it all in-person options? Megan, what is your business, Megan? I want to come. Yeah, I do some. Okay, so Hilda, what's happening in the chat right now, Hilda, I'm kind of going back and forth with her. People getting into shape, Merrickville and area. But now I've asked if she does online training and she said yes. So this could really expand out her audience to people. It might be Ontario wide, it could be Canada wide. So depending on which audience she wants to focus on, it could be one or the other or both. Sea kayak outfitter. That's so fun, Megan. Okay, you've like captured my love. Okay. I just want to talk to you about hiking and nature, but okay. Meta apps. So I've got some good ideas. Okay. And the last part, my main goal is to grow the gym in my classes. Okay, so we're really in person at this point. So this is what I mean about narrowing down your audience, like getting to the heart of who that audience is. Okay, so we're going to hold on to these examples and I'm going to come back to them in a moment. So within Meta, there are three main targeting options that you are presented with. So the first one is called saved, which I feel is a very strange word. I'll explain that in a moment. The second is called custom. And the third is called a lookalike audience. So let's go in and see what these look like. So the saved audience is the one that we're most familiar with. It's kind of the action that the conversation that I'm having a little bit with that group, the group right now. So they're audiences that are built exclusively on interests or demographics. So we've got Hilda doing in-person training, fitness in Merrickville. We've got Megan who's doing men and women 25 to 60 with kayaking. And then we've got Tammy, widowed women. This one's going to be a tough one. You gave me a tough one, Tammy, but we'll try and make it work. So this is the one most people are familiar with when you're getting in and creating those ads initially. And this is what it looks like. We're going to go through an example together. So for the case study here, we've got Toronto area, 25 miles out. You can see the radius. I've put in an age range of 40 to 60, women only, and they have an interest in camping. So it pops out and you'll see on the left-hand side, the estimated audience size is 224,000 people. So that's kind of like an estimated size of the audience. It can vary a little bit. Now, There's other little bits in here that you can add to or remove to make your audience even stronger. So for here, and it's funny, Megan, this is my example. I had you in mind when I did this. So detailed targeting in here, we've got canoeing as a water sport. We've got kayaking as an outdoor activity. And we've also added in camping in here as well. Okay. So that's our detailed targeting in here. So what's happening here is each interest is added as an or. So canoeing or kayaking or camping. But there's a way to kind of narrow it down a little bit more. So this one here, this example, has this variable, I will say. So we've got camping, but it also must match that they like coffee. So maybe, no, okay, actually, my coffee friend, Alicia in here, maybe this is your demographic. Maybe you've got a coffee that's perfect to bring on a backpacking trip. This is what you could kind of pair and make into this. So you've got camping and coffee, and we've got our estimated audience size. So let's make an audience together, right? This is fun. Okay, so we're going to start at the bottom here. And the option here is create a saved audience. So we'll do 2. Maybe we'll do 2. I'm just going to call this one Hilda. Can everyone see this okay? We're good? Okay, perfect. Okay, so our example is Hilda and Merrickville. And then we've got Merrickville, and as a city, there are lots of cities with similar names. So make sure you pick the right one. See, Merrickville, New York, Merrickville, Ontario. So there's Merrickville. For those of you not in Canada, I know there's a couple of you. This is where Merrickville is. This is Merrickville. Okay. And then you can make this radius as small as 10 or as great as 50. So we can do 10 miles. If you want a very, very tiny radius of 1 mile, what you have to do is use this option down here where it says drop pin. And what it's going to do, it's going to put a geocode. I'll put it pretty near. So see how it changed it from Merrickville and now it's the geocode? See that difference? And now I can bring it down to 1 mile. For us Canadians, that's 2.2 kilometers. So now I have a little bit of flexibility for how big that radius is. Okay. So a couple different ways that we can do this. Hilda, what's your postal code? I would use mine, but I don't know the Merrickville postal code. Or the first couple digits anyways, if you're. Hilda, are you even here anymore? Oh, there you are. Okay, all right. So another thing you can do, I guess I can't copy and paste, KOH 1. Yeah. That. All right, that is not you. KOH 1 and KOG. This is why KOG. Okay, so there we go. There's our KOG. So this is the different ways that you can narrow based on audience. So you can have a specific city, you can do a geocode, or you can do a postal code or a zip code for the Americans who are here. Now this one's a bit odd because it does cover such a big area. So for you, Hilda, I'd stick probably with the radius. So we'll just take that one out. And now we've got our lovely little radius there. And you can see here, that's 4,300 people. Okay. Now, if you've ever been, and there's a few of us that have been in meta ads before, These preferences look a little bit different, and I'm not a big fan of them. These are called Audience Plus, and it's trying to get us to make our audiences bigger with the assumption that everybody wants all of our ads. So I'm a little bit old school. So at the bottom here, you can always go back to the original audience options, and that's what I'm going to click. So now it's going to flip back over to kind of the old audience options. It does give us more control over what we're doing. Okay. All right. So Hilda, does it matter how old your people are? Pro gym and classes. I'm picking on you today, Hilda. Look what happened here. All right. I'm going to make an assumption here. I'll say like 20, maybe to 60. It's fine. I'm learning. I like the enthusiasm. Okay. So I've just made an assumed audience for you, Hilda. So now we've got Merrickville. We're going to do women who are between 20 and 60. And I am keeping it broad because you're starting with a smaller audience. So Merrickville is a small town, starting with only 4,300 people. So I'm going to keep it a little bit more broad. So I'll say 20 to 60 people, 20 to 60 years of age, and then women. But I assume you can also do men. So I'm going to put a pin in that one for a minute. And then the other things that I can put in here might be interests that Hilda's clients and customers might want to relate to. So maybe they're already the fitness minded people. So it could be physical fitness. We could do that. So now it's 1,100 people. Okay. So this is a broad, how I'm viewing this right now is a very broad advertisement where Hilda is saying, come and prove your fitness with us. We've got group classes. It might be women only. Okay. So here's how you can start to veer off a little bit and start to use the interest to your advantage. So I'm going to make some assumptions about Hilda's gym for a moment. So I'm going to actually do running. So here we've got running as a sport in an interest, and it's below 1,000. So we're going to have to increase that a little bit. Rather than adding sports or physical activities here, maybe Hilda has a program or a fitness class focused on developing runners or focused on improving the muscles that runners would engage when they're running. So instead of the ad simply being come to our classes, it could be, hey, local runners, we've got a great fitness class that helps tone and improve muscles A, B, and C. It's Monday nights at, 5 p.m. Okay. So this is how you can start to vary it. So depending on all the programs that Hilda has, you can start to vary. I'm going to pick on kayaking for a second. So same thing here. So if maybe it is a program, because I know like Ottawa Valley, they do a bunch of kayaking. You could have a fitness class focused on kayak as a watercraft. And it's all kind of that upper body strength that you would need to do any sort of kayaking. So these can all be saved as different audiences, depending on maybe the fitness program that Hilda is running, the classes that are being run in the area, or generally the time of year. Okay, so it doesn't just have to be one specific audience. Okay. All right, so let's back this up and we are going to use Megan's example. I'm just going to put Megan's name here so I recall. And Megan. So Megan is in Ontario and states around Lake Superior. All right. Okay, so Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Oh, Marie, Ontario. We're going to take this out. Okay, so now we're kind of moving across the province here. And Megan is doing sea kayaking out of, like, where is it based out of, Megan? Like your actual like launch. If Megan is, I don't know if Megan, oh yeah, Megan's here. Oh, well, oh, you're at a Wawa. Okay, cool. I have driven through Wawa many a times. Okay, so let's make these big. And we're going to do Sault Ste. Marie. And this is where you could probably drop the pin. I almost want to make it a bigger audience because of the draw of like what you're doing. And down here. So it could look something like this. I don't think there's many people who are in here. This is like Pancake Bay in here. Okay, so it could be something like this. You can add more radiuses around here because people from Ottawa would definitely drive up here. Okay, so now we've got a bunch of audiences in here. And it's 20 to 60, I believe. Kayaking, let's do all. Kayaking, we can just do kayak. And that's 15,000 people. So they have an interest in. Now, sometimes I find this audience, you know, it is big, but if you can narrow it down a little bit more. So ways that Megan could narrow down this audience, maybe the kayaking adventures are multi-day. So I'm assuming maybe there's a one-day option and then there's a multi-day option. But the multi-day option requires that people enjoy camping, I'm going to assume. So what Megan could do is tap this narrow audience that finds people who have an interest in kayaking, but they also have an interest in camping. Camping as an outdoors activity. Did that bring down that audience much? 13,700. Let me just take a peek. Oh, it did. About 2,000 people it took out. Okay. So again, rather than having one ad to all people, Megan could have like a multi-day expedition that includes camping, go to this group of people, but maybe the single day adventures go to the other groupings of people. Does that make sense? How you can start to kind of like peel people out of an audience? Okay, so Alicia's getting creeped out now and asks, how does Facebook know what we're interested in? So number one, it's looking at our website visits. So all those cookie notifications we get when we're going to websites, part of it is pulled into there. Number two, it looks at the interest. Some people put this in their profiles and they start filling out saying, I'm interested in this movie and I like this food and I like this activity. So it pulls from there. It pulls from text conversations with our friends and family on Messenger. So we might be texting back and forth on Messenger saying, hey, let's go to see this movie or let's go camping. It's going to pull and recognize on that information in those text messages. And then depending if you have your microphone enabled, I'm pretty convinced it also listens to us because I play with it sometimes and I say words and sometimes ads appear almost instantly. So it makes a profile for us based on basically all of our activities. Okay. So this is how you can start to create multiple saved audiences. Again, this is the one that we see most often. It's the most used one, but sometimes it can be the most abused one in the sense of, I'm going to give you an example. All right. So where people get into trouble with creating the saved audience is they start to put everything in here. Oh, see how it's jumping? That's a normal thing. Canoe. Mountain. Mountaineering. That's an employer. Climbing. Okay. So where people start to run into trouble is they start adding too many items into here because they think, oh, I want people interested in canoes and kayaks and mountain climbing and camping. And they're all or. So this is canoe or kayak or mountain climbing or camping. It can make a very broad audience and become very irrelevant to people. So by doing that, see what it did here? It added around 80,000 people to that audience. That might not even be my audience, potentially, but it's not a guarantee. So keeping this as succinct as you can. It's not just jumping for me, right? It's everyone gets to see this. Okay. Yep. So keeping it succinct with generally one or two audience interests is going to be the best, and then narrow down further if possible. And then once you're done, you can click this create a saved audience. I'll just save this one because it will come back for us in a little bit. Okay. All right. On to next. All right, your custom audiences. So the custom audiences are people who have already been engaged with you online. So it could be engaged on your website, it could be your Facebook page, Instagram account. There's a few more options which you will see, but these are kind of the three main primaries that we talk about. So the custom audiences are things like this. So have people been on your website? Have they been on specific pages? Things that aren't as relevant to this group, you can do app activity. I don't think anyone here has an app. I could be wrong. It could be catalog. If people are looking at your store, your Facebook or Instagram store. In terms of meta sources, you can include things like Instagram account, Facebook page, if people have looked at your account or interacted with you. So we're going to go through a couple of those examples. So the website example is what you have to do is install a tracking pixel on your website. It's something that your web developer designer could be able to do for you. They just need access to the code. You can send it to them. There is no additional cost to have this code. So there's rumors out there saying it costs money, but it doesn't. You can have it installed on your account and there is no cost to it. So when you are setting up this audience, you can target based on who has visited your website. So it could be the homepage, or it could be specific to a service page or a specific product page. And the retention here means that you give permission to the pixel to go back so many days. So if your pixel was installed a year ago, you could go back up to 6 months to say, let's put Jennifer in this audience because she visited our website 5 months ago. Okay. So I'm going to come back to the example about the coffee seller and the house seller from the two people in this session. So the retention on somebody who's thinking about purchasing $20 worth of coffee, you know, they probably have to buy coffee every 10 to 14 days, like depending on how much they drink. So you could have that retention a lot smaller versus the individual who is selling a house. It's probably going to take a couple months. So that retention period is going to be longer that you want to stay in front of them because the purchase decision is so different. You know, a $20 bag of coffee versus a $600,000 house. So this retention will, again, vary depending on the product or service that you're selling. So Melinda said on Pixels, is it for the whole site? Yep. So you install it once. You don't have to install it on every page. You just install it once. And then once you're on the page that looks like this, where it says all website visitors with the dropdown, you click that. And then maybe it's, because I know you're with the municipality down in Texas, I think. If it's like the recreation department, let's say, you could just put in that URL for the recreation department, and then it can pull any data from that. Or if it's building and planning, it could be for that. So Pixels, Meta, I'm making a face. Meta, for some reason, decided they're now called data sets. So the phrase pixel is outdated. They call them data sets. If you're in your business manager and say, where's my pixel? It's now been moved down to the drop down that says data set. So that's where it's in, that you can find it now in your business manager. So the pixel or the data set looks like this. The data should mirror what you're seeing if you're tracking with a similar program like Google Analytics or similar, but it will show you that web activity. So what it's showing here is we can send targeted messages to all of these individuals, you know, provided they're within our certain criteria that we have. Now, Facebook's a little bit different. So Facebook, the retention, you can go back up to an entire fiscal year. And you can target based on the action they had with your Facebook page. And I'm going to show you an example. And then Instagram, the same thing. So the retention goes back an entire fiscal year, and you can create the audience based on what action they had with you. So now that we're looking at the ads manager again, if I go into custom audience, and I'm going to do just one of these because they're pretty similar. So I'm going to say Facebook page. So now I've got my company here, and then I want to target based on what action. So is it people who've engaged with my page, they visited a page, they've engaged with a post, they've clicked a call to action, they sent a message, they saved a post. So it's up to you how granular you want to get. For those of you with smaller audiences, you might simply be anyone who's visited your page. It could be. And then you can go back as far back as you think is relevant, maybe 6 months, it could be an entire year. Okay. Or if you want people who've engaged with your page, which means maybe they've liked a post, they've created a comment, you could do that as well. So it shows that they're actually engaged with what you're saying and what you're doing. So you could do that. Okay, so there's a few different options in here. I haven't seen these change too much, which makes me think that they're going to change these soon. But typically these are the most common ones that people want, visited or engaged with. Okay, and you can do that for Instagram as well. So it's going to look very similar on Instagram. So anyone who's engaged, and then those are the options. So they're slightly different from Facebook because simply the actions are a little bit different from here as well. All right. Okay, so your lookalike audiences. This one is great for big people with big audiences. So for anyone here who can sell nationally or even provincially, they're good audiences. So they're ads who can reach people who are likely to be interested in what you're doing and what you're selling. So what it does, it uses an existing custom audience. So that's step one. So you have to have your custom audiences set up. And then based on that custom audiences, it tries to match similar people to the people already in that audience. So that 1% audience, it takes the people who are as close as possible to the people already in your audience. But when we try to make it in a very small geographic range, it doesn't work quite. It doesn't work quite the same way. Okay, so Nancy, what if I have an audience that I develop through calling? Calling what? How is this audience, like, is it? And you've taken their email addresses? Oh, so for that type of audience, you can use a customer list. So if you've got a larger list of customers, you can do through a customer list. So provided you've got the necessary permissions, so whether you do use an email marketing list or you've gathered a list of email addresses through other means, you could upload it to the customer list. The one challenge with that is it will need to be in excess of 1,000. Otherwise, Facebook will kick back and say, no, the audience is too small. So you would just need an audience in excess of that 1,000 number there. Okay, so which audience is best? And honestly, it really depends. It's highly dependent on your business and what you're selling. So again, I can see the price ranges kind of in based on who is here. We've got houses and vehicles and coffee and fitness. So you've got a big range of people in here. So it really depends on the business model. It also depends on your budget as well. And that, purchase decision, how long does it take for an individual to make that purchase? Okay. So Nancy, the data that's necessary, it's their explicit permission to be used in marketing. So you would need some sort of permissions from that person. So we've talked a little bit about that. So I'm just gonna, okay. So we are, we're getting through here today. So we're gonna jump into campaign objectives. So one last question to Nancy, and then I'm gonna continue. To be honest, you only need the email address. You don't need their first name, last name. It really comes down to permissions, if you are allowed to email them. And if you are located within Canada, we have legislation called Canada Anti-Spam legislation, and it does require some sort of permission. So it can be explicit or implicit, based on that customer list and how it was required. And it all comes down to proof. So if that person ever had a complaint against your company regarding marketing, you'd have to be able to prove that they did give you that permission to be used in marketing. Okay, so you're in the US. I'm not sure of the regulations there regarding anti-spam legislation, so it might be slightly different. All right, campaign objectives. They've reduced these. So probably since the last time I did a webinar, there used to be 13 different campaign objectives. They reduced them down to 6. In the grand scheme of things, I generally use 3 to 4 of these consistently at this point. So the different types of campaigns, actually, I'm going to go back for a second. So regardless of which one you pick out of this list, the process to complete an ad is very similar. There's small little differences that you will see as you go through. But on the grand scheme, 99% of creating the ad is about the same. Okay. So we're going to go through the 6 different ad types. So awareness, they're going to show to people who are most likely to remember. The one difference with this ad is, you can limit how many times the ad shows to a specific individual. So if you want that frequency to be 1 time every 7 days, you can set that. If it wants to be 2 times every 7 days, you can set that as well. So the goal of this is to reach the maximum size of audience and not necessarily worry about click-through traffic. So this is simply reach. This is a brand awareness, large awareness. Okay. Traffic. This one gets used a lot. I do use this one a lot. It's because you want to send people back to a specific destination. So it could be people going back to an e-commerce store. It could be signing up to a newsletter. It could be going to read a blog. But the whole goal of the ad is to get the person from Facebook over somewhere else, be it event registration, sales, a landing page view, or so on. This one also gets used a lot as well. And sometimes the word or the phrase boost a post has a negative connotation, or maybe it does for me. But boosting a post isn't the way I like to run ads. I prefer to use what's called engagement campaigns, which takes an existing organic post. So an organic post is probably something we all did today. We posted on Facebook, we posted on Instagram, and sent it out to our people. Now the engagement post will take that content and you can add a budget to it. So you can use that in a campaign saying, hey, put $100 to this and show it to this specific audience. So I do like doing this because the work is already done. You know, you've already did the post about your shop, your product, your service, whatever. And now you're just adding a budget to it. You don't have to kind of go through everything. So I do like using this one. So this one is great for getting people to like, comment, share. It's a great way to utilize organic content that might not have been seen yet. Leads function a little bit differently. So an instant lead form allows people to click on the ad and create and fill out a fillable form. So if you're somebody who wants to create a list of people who are interested in purchasing a home or getting on an email list or signing up for recreation programs or museum programs, that instant form allows you to do that. The one challenge with this is it stays on Facebook. So those permissions, you can't just take that information and then put it into some email marketing. So I'm going to speak Canadian here for a second. There's some, people might say, do not add me to an email list. And where people start to get into a little bit of gray area, they're like, oh, it's fine. But if they're giving you explicit permission to get information about a topic, to then put them on an email list is a no-no. So it's kind of a little bit of a gray area. So people in Canada tend not to use these too much. App promotions. I don't think there's any app developers on the call. So if you have an app, you can do an ad for it. That's all I'm going to say about it because I can see the people. And the last part is sales. So if you run an e-commerce store, you've got that Shopify set up and connected with Facebook Meta, you can have a sales-based ad such that the whole goal is to show the number of conversions and show the number of catalog sales. And it can give you that dollar value. Okay. All right. Any questions before we get into the super fun topic of special ad categories? No. How's everyone doing out there? Melinda's still here. That's good. And Alicia. Okay, you've all zoned out, so I'm going to keep going. Okay, special ad categories. So this is a fun thing that probably many of you, okay, Lisa's with me. Thank you. Simon's with me. Great. Okay, so our special ad categories, this is a thing that was introduced, not surprisingly, after the 2016 American presidential election. And the focus on it is so that advertisers don't engage in predatory marketing practices. So that includes things like elections, politics, that's the election right there, housing, employment, and credit. So we're going to talk about these a little bit more in detail. So there's so the housing one, Karen. Okay. So this is where people run into a lot of problems when they start to do advertising. They don't realize that what caption they're using, what image they're using, or what business they're associated with actually falls within these ad categories. So housing. To do any sale, any rental opportunities, you have to have a special ad category, and that means it's Kingston plus 25 miles, 18 plus. That opportunity should be allowed to everyone. So this goes for realtors, homeowners, mortgage insurance, appraisal services, home repair. So where people think, oh, I'm just doing this small little activity, but it's about, improving a house, or I'm just a mortgage broker, you have to be associated with that special ad category. They will restrict your ad account. I know there was a question earlier about getting it back. Very difficult to get back if you break the rules multiple times. Credit is also where people get into a little bit of trouble. So I know Simon's here, and oftentimes dealerships get into trouble because they're like, I'm just selling a car. Our finance rate is 4%. What's the big deal? So because you're either putting, our current rate is 4%, or our current lease rate is this, and it's in the caption or it's in the actual creative, it's red flags. So that opportunity should be open to everyone, and therefore it's a part of a special ad category. Not to say that you can't target with car ads. It's when you start getting into providing specific rates is where it red flags it. So those numbers, those percent signs, loan, the word loan. So any of that, you go into a special ad category. And then the last one that, again, people oftentimes, and this goes for everybody in the group, employment. So you might say, hey, I'm hiring for a part-time assistant. I'm hiring for a full-time this. And maybe you target it, to people who are 30 to 40 who live in, a certain geographic area, like a very tight. You can't do that because employment is open to all. So it's everybody 18 plus within a geographic area plus 25 miles. So this is the one that I see most often get caught up. Even it was years ago now. Megan, you'll like this, but I was working for a kayaking group and they were running tours, and it was like, join a half day kayaking. This is what you get. This is the price. Join our certified guide, because they went through training to provide this kayaking, and it got red flagged. And they don't tell you, Meta doesn't tell you why they've pulled the ad. So I'm staring at this ad saying, what did I do wrong? And it was the word certified. And the word certified means certification, and Meta thought I was providing educational opportunities, again, that should be open for all, part of a special ad category. So oftentimes you have to really, really think about the captions that you're putting in here, because even if it's like, oh, it's a certified guide so that you don't drown on your kayak adventure, it was viewing it as an educational opportunity rather than a requirement for the guide to be certified. So it's little things like that. And as probably many of you know, Meta isn't great for their customer service. So special ad categories. I didn't talk about the political one. I don't think anyone's running for office here, Counselor. No. Okay. All right. Any questions? We've got about maybe 15 minutes left. Oh, caption. The primary text, the headline, or the description. There's 3. We'll talk about that. Okay, so your ad set. So the next page that you're going to see on the journey of creating an ad is called your conversion. So you're going to get asked a lot of times what you want to achieve with your ad. So I went through this example with a traffic-based ad. And even though it's a traffic-based ad, these are still the options. And if you'll notice, a few of them want to keep you on Facebook, or they want to keep you on Instagram. So that messaging app, you want to correspond with people that way, send them to your Instagram profile. You can do that. But ideally, you probably want them off your website, off Facebook, back to your website. And then the performance goal, what do you want to achieve? The maximum number of link clicks. Under this drop-down menu, it will often say impressions as well. And I will bring up an example once we get through this page. Budget. Probably the top 3 questions that I get asked. Budget. So there's 2 different ways that you can get charged for Meta ads. So number 1 is a lifetime budget. So it's the lifetime of the campaign. So whether your campaign is 1 day long or if it's 30 days long, it's the lifetime of the campaign. The other option is daily. So it's the maximum amount of dollars that you are going to spend each day. And you have the opportunity to set that at whatever range that you want. but there are minimums based on the audience that you choose. If you choose a lifetime budget, you get a little bit of flexibility in terms of when your ads appear. And I've always been asked by people that say, well, I don't want my ads to show at 3 a.m. because nobody sees it. I'm like, but they have to be on the app at 3 a.m. to see the ad at 3 a.m. It's not like a billboard that is outside our office that if nobody's walking around, they're not seeing it. People have to be using the program for the ad to be served to them. So it's not necessarily about the time. However, it could be about how your ad is written. So I'm going to do Simon because Simon's got his camera on. So I'm just going to talk to him for a second here. So Simon could create an ad that says, come talk to, I'm going to give this person's name, Lisa. Come talk to Lisa at reception and book your appointment for your next test drive. Okay. Now people are getting talk to Lisa at reception. And I'm only going to run this ad between maybe 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. Monday through Friday, because that's when Lisa's sitting at reception. I'm not going to have it, Sunday morning at 12, but I want it to be actionable. The same could go for, who else is in here who I can pick on? No one. Okay. No one sells pizza. That's okay. But one of the examples I tend to give is a pizza example. You're a pizza shop and every Friday you have, pick up $5 pizza on the way home from work. So that ad only runs on Fridays. So it might start at Friday at 6 a.m. and run until maybe 9 p.m., but it runs multiple weeks. So it's only in front of you on the day that it's available. So rather than starting and creating an ad every single week, you can have the ad run on a specific date and time to achieve a specific goal. And this reminds me, maybe some people have seen this ad, but I love this ad. So the East Coast of Canada, there's a province called Prince Edward Island, and every year they have a campaign. And I wait for the campaign every year, and they've been doing it for probably a decade. And every year it's a different name. It's like, call Sarah at Prince Edward Island and book your tour. And the next year it's a different name. So they can totally track where these people are coming from based on the name that they're asking when they call to book their tour to the island. So you could do something similar here as well. All right, placement. If you're not overwhelmed yet, this screen will probably do it for you. It might just put you over the edge for a Thursday afternoon. Where do your ads appear on Meta? There's generally anywhere from 20 to 26 different places and spaces across Meta that your ads appear. So you don't have to pick all of them. You can be very strategic about where they appear. And some work better than others. And I was on a call with a Meta person earlier this week, and they said, we noticed you're not doing Advantage Plus, having the ads go everywhere. And I'm like, that's because they're not all really good. And she's like, oh yeah, I know that, but I'm supposed to say this. I'm like, this call is being recorded, but okay. And she recognized that. And I said, like, sometimes they just don't perform well, or like based on how the ad is built, it looks really bad, small versus big. So these are your options. I really like Facebook, Instagram feed, depending on what you're selling. Sometimes Marketplace works well, but sometimes not, because they think they're on Marketplace and think they're going to get a deal. Right-hand column, great for awareness. Actionable, maybe not so much. The stories. Reels, no, I don't like them. They're so small, you can't see what's happening. People don't go to Reels to get, to watch, or sorry, to be advertised to. So Melinda is asking, like, how do you know that your ad is going to look good in all of these? That's on the next slide. That's the next slide. Or it's in there, Melinda, we're coming. And then we've got this wonderful tool that I alluded to a little bit earlier about the audience network. So Facebook Partner is very similar with Google. So Google has what's called the Google Display Network, and the ads appear across different websites. Same thing goes for Meta. So your ads can appear across a number of different platforms, apps, websites as well. And just like Google, you can put controls on it, but some people don't know that you can put controls on it. So sometimes your ads might be showing up in undesirable locations. For the audience network, same thing goes for Google as well, but you can put those checks in place. Okay, so the ad creative. So how do you know your ad is going to look good in all of the different placements? It's going to give you an opportunity to look at the different placements and how it appears. But first, I want to talk about a dynamic ad. So this goes for the e-commerce people on the call today. But I do love the dynamic ad because what it does, it pulls anything from your e-commerce store and shows it in a carousel function. So my coffee friend on the call, it's showing their coffee on rotation based on our preferences. There is a local shop that I work with, and she sells like kind of home goods and little things like that. And one of the products she sells is wine glasses with birds on it. And it always shows to me, and it makes me know that the ads are working well and the dynamic ads are working well because I like wine and I like birds, and I've got birds on a cup. I'm like, this is like just made for me. But that's what the dynamic ads will do. They'll show the products that are most relevant to you, and it's different for everybody who sees it. So I do love the dynamic ads. You do need to have that commerce manager set up. So this is how it could look. Like, we're not all going to go to Hawaii, but let's pretend for a second. So we could see and scroll through the different products available through that e-commerce shop. And at the end, it's going to have a logo. Sometimes it's a map, depending on your preferences, to go shop more. Okay. And it's live and it's up to date. So if something sells out, it's instantly removed from that category. All right, so different things that you can do. So the different creatives that you can do. Touching a little bit on the question from Melinda, how does your ad appear if all the placements are different? There's a few different ways that you can do that. So with a carousel, they're square, they're square images. And this is something that I would put exclusively on a Facebook feed or an Instagram feed. So part of it, so if I go back here for a second, with some clients, what I'll start to do is say, okay, I'm only going to have this show to Facebook, and then I'm going to do carousel. And then another ad set is the Instagram stories, and then it's got specific criteria associated. It's almost like trying not to jam too much in one. It's like round peg, square hole, or square peg, round hole, whichever that is. So this one is great. The carousels are great if you're showing multiple products, or I'll say in Simon's case, where he's got a vehicle and you want to show the outside, the inside, the engine, and all the bits. So it's great if people want to get more in detail. So I don't think I really need to see a lot of pictures about lip balm, but in this case, they showed the different colors and what it looks like in the tube. So what's nice about this, what's nice about carousels is you have one main text, and then you can have different links associated with each image. So if Simon wanted to sell 10 different cars, each of the carousel images would have a different image and then vehicle link in here. So that's one option. If you were doing something like a vertical video, this is where I'd say just do stories or just do reels, because it doesn't make sense to have this in a feed at all. So part of it is balancing what you want to do with, okay, what's our placement and what's our creative and what's going to look good together. And when you're doing this, trying to show people using your product or service is a great thing. People like faces. If you've ever noticed, maybe you think, oh, I took a selfie of myself, or I took a picture of me with a customer or me with a client, and that performed really, really well. That's because people like you. They like to see real things. We're all a little bit tired right now of AI and things that aren't real. If you can show that personality behind your brand, your ads are going to do so much better. Sometimes I find ads that do the best don't look like ads, right? We've all done it. We're like, oh, that's an ad, and you almost instantly turn it out, like you just tune it out. But if you have to dig a little bit, you're like, oh, that's an ad. That's not bad. Sometimes it's about keeping it very, very simple. And this is what people sometimes overcomplicate things. I saw this example and I was like, oh, this is so perfect. My son was really into watches for a period of time. So here they are. Here are the watches that we were looking at. But look at the text here. All it says is own a part of watchmaking history. Find your Timex. That's all it says. It's got pictures of the watches, white background. I can scroll through to see different ones, and that's it. It's pretty clear what's happening in this ad. And I love the simplicity of it. And the question that Melinda was asking a little bit earlier is, different placements are going to have different aspect ratios. And sometimes Facebook changes things without telling us. So knowing the ratios is a good thing. So I think on the next slide, I have this link. Maybe Vish can grab this link from somewhere and put it in the chat. But it's that real time, what the aspect ratio is for all the creative. So there's a drop down menu here, and it says like Instagram story or Facebook reel, and it tells you exactly what you need. So all the design recommendations, so whether it's you or a colleague, it tells you exactly what you need. Rather than Googling it and going, what's the size of a Facebook reel ad? It's going to tell you here. Okay. So let's make an ad. So we're going to jump back a bit before I get into the copy. Okay, so I'm doing a traffic campaign. Please give your campaign a name that makes sense. So even if it's like October, this is where you can do your declaration if you do have any of these special ad categories. It does guide you a little bit, yes or no, and it will bring you through if you do offer anything that's within that special ad category. So I said no for the sake of today. And you're going to notice a lot of this as well, this Advantage Plus, Campaign Budget Plus. I don't like it. I'm old, maybe, and grumpy, but I like to have control over what's happening. There's a little bit too much AI. So I do want to have that control. Okay. So our traffic ad set, usually I do Kingston. And then this is where you can determine, do you want your website, messaging apps, your performance goals, so what you want to achieve. So it could be the maximum number of people, it could be maximum number of clicks. I didn't get into dynamic creative, so maybe I can run a webinar on that separately, but that's a whole nother can of worms. So your budget and scheduling will depend on the audience. So I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. I wish they'd put the audience before the budget. But if you plan on targeting an entire country, you need a bigger ad budget. If you want to, target a small community like Hilda, you need a smaller ad budget, just because the dollars go further with smaller amounts of people, which makes sense. So you can choose to do daily budgets or lifetime budgets. So it's giving you the ideas here. You can say 30. And now it's saying, you must have at least for a 30-day. So you can just make this smaller. It's saying it ends too soon. So you have control over this. So at any point during your campaign, you can increase or decrease your budget. You can stop your campaign. You can restart your campaign. It's very different from traditional media where, you put your ad in the paper and it's done. You've written your check. You have a lot of flexibility with those ads. Now for your audiences in here, so you can see in here, this audience controls, we've got Advantage Plus audiences. And I just want to go back to my original audiences because maybe I'm old and grumpy. But this looks a lot like what we went through a little bit earlier. It's exactly the same. And the reason why you would make all these audiences in advance is this. So you can do saved audience, and there's our friend Megan in there. He's doing some sea kayaking. Or I guess lake kayaking, I suppose. It's not a sea. So now, rather than redoing it every time, I've got my Megan audience in here. Or if I had a pixel, I could grab that audience. If I had a Facebook audience, I could grab that audience. Okay, so I'm just going to put Megan in there. And then here's our placement. So there it is again, this Advantage Plus with the little stars, which mean AI. So again, edit. I do manual. And then you can pick off or unselect anything you don't want. They will kind of push it on you to choose more, but again, you don't have to. Okay. And then your ads. So this is where you're actually creating your ads. It's the last step in the entire process. So for those of you who have a catalog, this is where you can choose your dynamic ads that pull from your store. For the rest of us, we can choose single images or videos, create carousels. And I want to say in the last 3 weeks, they've changed this page that there's a lot of scrolling in here. So now we're down to the ad creative. So I'm just going to add an image in here. Let's see. Let's just do this. So the question about what looks good where, oftentimes you can either crop or you're going to make the ad for the placement. So in this case, I can crop this like that. I could kind of move it around a little bit. So if you haven't done the work in advance, you can always do it now. Stories are trickier, so they should be built in advance because now it's cropped really funny. So we don't need to see my face. So we'll just put it there. And then we can crop this one. So some of them are a little bit easier than others to do the cropping. But if you do use a tool like Canva, you can do it fairly quickly to do the cropping. But make sure to crop and make sure it looks good across all placements. Now here's our Advantage Plus again. It's so frustrating. So now it's giving us all these optimizations. So do you want music on? I don't, because music scares me on Facebook. Again, I'm old. You can turn off relevant comments. You can adjust the brightness, and it does this all automatically for you. So if you do want these options, by all means, keep them on. But oftentimes I like to turn a lot of these off because I've already built something for the place. So text improvements, no, I don't want AI in there. Okay. So now it's going to give you a preview of all of your ads. At any point, you can tap this advanced preview. And it's going to show you all. Look at, see, it didn't even update here. So this is where you get to look back and say, do I want this? It's like a relationship. Do I really want this? Like, what really looks good? So you can go back to that placement at any point and start to take things out when you think, oh, it's already taken it out for me here. You know, is this going to convert if people are watching on Facebook ads? Or does this really make sense if people are just searching on Facebook or Instagram? I think that's Instagram. Yeah. Like, are people going to do anything when they see this? So you can go back at any point and update that. So these little tweaks like this is why I often do different ad ratios, ad sets for different ad ratios. Okay. All right. So our last little bit that we're going to talk about is the primary text. So I'm going to go through a couple slides and then I'll bring that back over. So there's 3 places for your primary text, or sorry, for your caption. So you primary text, description, and headline. So it generally looks like this. So if it is a feed-based ad, you've got your primary text up at the top, your headline down at the bottom, which kind of doesn't make sense, but that's okay. And then your description just above that. Short text. I often go back and forth with clients about making it shorter and more concise. And sometimes they say, well, we're not Lego or we're not Coca-Cola. But try to get your message across in the most simple way that you can. Our processing is overloaded at this point, so be as clear and concise as you can with your verbiage. The call to action button I put in here because I was brought into a municipality basically because their problem was they couldn't get a specific call to action button on their ads, and it all had to do with the ad type that they were running. So depending on if you're running a traffic or engagement or awareness, this call to action button, which is down here at the donate, it's different for each one. So if you can't find the one that you're looking for, try a different campaign objective. Okay. So the last little bit in here that we're going to talk about is the primary text. So you can add it could be like digital marketing solutions in Kingston. Here's our AI friend again, which again, I'm not a huge fan of because all they want to do is add emojis to things. Oh, they didn't in this case. I honestly don't like it. I'm not a fan. So you don't have to use it. So now you can see the primary text. See the difference here on Facebook versus Instagram, top versus bottom. See? And then if I write a headline, I'm going to put Ontario so you can see the difference. So now I've got a headline that says Ontario. Doesn't show up on either of these. And then I'm going to put Canada. And then it's giving me an error message. So this is a problem. This is a solution for you. Oftentimes it won't show your accurate ad until you put a website in. All right. So now we should see everything. So see how the primary text is at the top. Then we have headline down in the gray box here. And then we have Canada underneath that. So the different placements, but it shows nowhere on Instagram. There's our Instagram story. None of it shows. None of the text shows. For Facebook stories, some of it shows. So you can't rely on it being an accurate solution for everything. So sometimes, depending on what you want to do, you have to split it across or really narrow down your placements. Okay, so you can just see, and always just kind of check and make sure you're happy with it. And you can see how different the placements are, even though we did do some cropping, but you can see how different the placements are. See, look at this one here. It's got Canada right at the top, which means nothing. Okay, so just take a peek before you hit go. All right, so we're going to finish off because we've got about 6 minutes left and you've got to be on your way. So the one thing that I wanted to mention here for the setup is a single campaign can have, this might just be the end of your learning for the day. A single campaign can have multiple ad sets, and a single ad set can have multiple campaigns. I don't know if this makes sense. So here, this is a campaign that I'm running for a client. So they've got one campaign objective. We're targeting people who are 45 plus, and they have, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's 10 here. There's actually another 30 ads underneath this that they're running. So one ad set with 30 ads, and then we have a different campaign that's just for Instagram. So this one's Facebook, the other one's Instagram, with another 45 campaign or 45 ads underneath that. Okay, so it allows the budget to be shared across a single or multiple ad sets or single or multiple ads. Okay, and the last little bit is your ad reporting. So if you haven't checked out the report templates, I highly recommend you checking out the report templates. You get lots of good information from here. So you can narrow down items like where your ads are actually showing if you've chosen multiple placements. You can get an idea of the gender, if that's of relevance to you, the age, and if you are running multiple ad sets or ads, you can see the breakdown of age and gender and placement for each of the ads that you're running. Okay, so you can see those big audiences. You get summaries at the bottom, so these can be customized and emailed to you. I put a block through this so you couldn't see the creative. But you can see for each creative, so for each line item, that's the different creative for each in there, and how often people are seeing them, how many impressions have been, how many people have been reached. Okay. All right, we barely made it. I was like, I'm not going to talk for an hour and a half. I did. So we did talk about a lot. Vish doesn't look impressed, but maybe she is. So we talked about kind of the overview of Google Ads versus Meta versus LinkedIn, audience development, which we did spend a lot of time on, but it's super important. The campaign creation, ad set versus ads, and then actually creating the ads. Okay. Yes, so much information. So I do have probably about 3 minutes. So if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If not, this recording will be sent to you and you can digest it because it is, I do recognize a lot of information that you did take today. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. If your ad account has been restricted, then the best thing to do is go through the Meta support. They're the best avenue for doing it. Thanks, everyone.